Ladies, daughters of destiny, let me tell you something that the world has long tried to bury beneath doubt and distraction. You were born for greatness. Not because the world handed it to you, but because heaven planted it inside you. Yes, I speak to you. Not the one you pretend to be when the world is watching, but the quiet warrior inside, the one who dreams in silence and rises in storms. They listen to the whisper, not the roar. They are not driven by the noise of trends or the clamor of opinions. They are moved by the still, small voice within, the one that says, go forward, rise again. You were not made to shrink. It takes wisdom to be still in a world that worships noise too. They ask, why not me? Instead of, why me? While others ask why they suffer, why they are chosen to struggle, these women ask, why not me? If there is a mountain to move, let it be my hands that begin the work. If there is pain to carry, let it be transformed through me into power, into purpose, into poetry. 3. They read the room and rewrite it. Oh, they don't just walk into rooms, they shift the atmosphere. Not with arrogance, but with presence. They see what's missing, they notice who is hurting, and with a word, a glance, a simple act of grace, they bring the whole room back to life. This, beloved, is intelligence clothed in empathy. For they learn, and then unlearn. They are not afraid to admit they were wrong. They grow, they stretch, they evolve. Because true intelligence isn't afraid of change. It dances with it. They are constantly becoming more aligned, more aware, more free. They don't compete, they create. Let the world chase vanity and comparison. These women, they are too busy building visions, birthing ideas, raising truth like banners in a battlefield. They are not moved by applause. They are moved by purpose. You will find them writing, building, healing, teaching, quietly changing history. 6. They know the power of no. Not every door is their door. Not every opportunity is a calling. They have learned that no is not rejection, it is redirection. And when they say yes, oh, it is powerful, because it comes from clarity, not confusion. 7. They love without losing themselves. This is the mark of the highest wisdom. To love deeply, not out of emptiness, but out of overflow. They give, but they are not drained. They support, but they do not shrink. They rise and they lift others with them. Not because they need to be seen, but because they finally see themselves. Listen to the whisper, not the roar. In a world saturated with noise, opinions, projections, commands, comparisons, it becomes so easy for a woman to lose the sound of her own soul. The roar is constant. Social media shouts who you should be. Culture yells what you should look like. Even those who love you sometimes add to the clamor, layering their fears over your dreams. But the highly intelligent woman has learned something most never dare to practice. She chooses the whisper. The whisper is not flashy. It doesn't demand attention. It speaks in moments of stillness. In those seconds before sleep when the world is quiet enough to remember who you are, it's the intuitive pull that says, turn here, even when logic says otherwise. It's the sacred silence that tells you the truth about your own worth, even when the world calls you too much or not enough. Most people ignore the whisper because they are addicted to the roar. They want confirmation from the crowd. They wait for consensus, for applause, for assurance that they are doing life the right way. But the whisper rarely comes with applause. It's not a show. It's a compass. It doesn't flatter, it guides. And it speaks only to those willing to pause, to listen, to honor it above the static of the world. Highly intelligent women understand that real strength is not found in loud declarations, but in quiet knowing. They have disciplined themselves to turn down the volume of the world, to lean into the inner voice that others dismiss. It's not always easy. It takes courage to choose silence when noise feels like power. It takes faith to trust the quiet tug that moves you in a direction nobody else understands. You see, the whisper is not passive. It's not weakness. It's clarity. It's knowing what you carry. It's discernment that sees beyond surface success. It's vision that isn't distracted by temporary flashes. That whisper carries the blueprint of your calling. The reason many never walk in their purpose is not because they lack ability, but because they never stopped long enough to hear the instructions. They've been so busy responding to the world's roar that they forgot they were never meant to follow the crowd. This habit, this practice of tuning into the inner guide, shapes every decision. It affects relationships. It influences how you walk into rooms, how you carry your voice, how you respond to pressure. The intelligent woman does not need to shout to be heard. Her presence is loud enough. She doesn't need to dominate a space. She inhabits it, and she knows when to speak and when to stay silent, because the whisper has taught her the language of timing. There's something holy about a woman who no longer chases validation. A woman who knows the sound of her own knowing and trusts it. She doesn't perform for acceptance. She doesn't posture for relevance. She doesn't force her way forward, because she understands that the whisper inside her is wiser than the noise around her. She walks with deep awareness and even deeper restraint. She listens more than she reacts. She observes what others miss. Because she is not overwhelmed by the roar, she is able to perceive the undercurrents, the truth behind the noise, the motives behind the words, the meaning behind the moment. And that awareness makes her powerful in ways that can't be taught in books or schools. It's not just knowledge, it's wisdom. And wisdom doesn't scream. Wisdom whispers. Ask, why not me? Instead of why me? There comes a moment in every woman's life when the pressure mounts, the path twists, and the weight feels too heavy to carry. And in that sacred moment, a question often rises. Why me? Why this hardship? Why this delay? Why this heartbreak, betrayal, or burden? It's the question of the weary, of the soul that has grown tired of pushing forward without answers. But the highly intelligent woman knows how to shift that question into power. She reframes it. She doesn't just ask, why me? She begins to ask, why not me? This isn't just a play on words, it's a revolution in the mind. Why not me? Is not a cry of despair. It is a declaration of readiness. It is the question of a woman who sees herself not as a victim of circumstances, but as a vessel capable of carrying something bigger than herself. When others shrink in the face of difficulty, she stands still and sees a different picture. She understands that the fire that threatens to consume her might actually be the very thing that refines her. Why not me? Opens doors that self-pity would keep shut. It invites strength to the surface. It acknowledges that the very presence of the challenge is proof of capacity. She knows life doesn't hand out hardship randomly. There is often an assignment hidden in adversity, a hidden training in every test. The intelligent woman does not run from responsibility. She does not flee from growth. She has learned to see even pain as purposeful. If the moment requires boldness, then she must be bold. If the moment calls for vision, then she will see. If the season demands surrender, then she will let go. This question, why not me, also speaks to calling, to destiny, to the path that isn't always paved, but often wild and overgrown. The intelligent woman is not waiting for someone else to step up and lead, to speak, to create, to heal, to challenge the broken systems. She looks around, sees the need, and feels the quiet fire in her bones. Why not me? Why not be the one who writes the book, starts the business, leads the movement, heals the wound, builds the bridge? This is not arrogance. It is awareness, a holy awareness that what she carries is not random. Her talents are not accidental. Her voice is not a mistake. Her story, with all its jagged edges and golden moments, is not something to hide. It is something to use. The highly intelligent woman does not wait for permission. She does not wait for the stars to align. She has learned that purpose does not come with certainty. It comes with courage. And so she moves. Not because everything is easy, but because everything is meaningful. She takes the opportunities that scare her. She raises her hand when others step back. She walks into the unknown because the greater risk is to stay silent, to stay small. She knows that playing it safe will never satisfy the calling on her life. She has wrestled with fear. She has known the taste of doubt. But she also knows what it feels like to rise, to stand in rooms she once only dreamed of, to hear the sound of her own voice shaking and still speaking. And every time she moves forward despite the fear, she becomes more fluent in her own power. Because the question that propels her is not rooted in unworthiness. It is rooted in possibility. Why not me? Is the anthem of the woman who has stopped waiting to be chosen and has instead chosen herself. Read the room and rewrite it. There is a rare kind of intelligence that doesn't always show up in tests or degrees, but it transforms spaces the moment it enters. The highly intelligent woman doesn't just walk into a room and blend in. She walks in with her eyes open, her senses alert, her spirit engaged. She reads the energy, the undercurrents, the silence between words. She notices who isn't being heard. She sees who is performing and who is hiding. She doesn't just listen to what people are saying. She listens to what they aren't saying. And in doing so, she gains power that many never even recognize. Reading the room isn't about manipulation or control. It's about awareness. It's about showing up fully awake, fully attuned to the dynamics in motion. The intelligent woman knows that power doesn't always sit at the head of the table. Sometimes it sits quietly in the corner, waiting to be invited in. Sometimes it's cloaked in insecurity. Sometimes it's masked by ego. But she can sense it, name it, and shift it. Without demanding attention, she's fluent in tone, posture, rhythm, and silence. She can feel when something's off before anyone says a word. She watches how people speak to the weakest among them. She notices who interrupts and who is never given the floor. She sees when tension fills a room and pretends to be productivity. She recognizes fear when it dresses itself as authority. And she doesn't look away. She doesn't pretend not to see. because she knows that real intelligence requires more than just mental sharpness. It requires emotional and spiritual depth. And so, she rewrites the room. She doesn't do it with force. She does it with presence, with posture, with tone, with the weight of someone who is anchored in herself. When she speaks, it's not to dominate, but to clarify. When she listens, it's not to reply, but to understand. She lifts the atmosphere just by bringing integrity into it. Her clarity cuts through confusion. Her calm disarms anxiety. Her authenticity invites others to put down their masks. The highly intelligent woman knows that culture isn't just created by leaders, it's created by those who carry themselves with intention. So whether she's in a boardroom or a living room, on a stage or behind the scenes, she doesn't just absorb the energy, she influences it. She decides who she will be in that room before the room decides for her. She sets the tone with her presence, not her volume. She doesn't need the spotlight to shine, she brings light with her, and she uses it wisely. She makes space for the unheard. She honors those who have gone unseen. She challenges the assumptions that silence has validated for too long. She asks questions that break the script. She speaks truths that have waited years to be said. And when necessary, she challenges systems without attacking people. She corrects without shaming. She disrupts without destroying. Her power is not loud, but it is undeniable. She doesn't compete with the noise. She changes the frequency. She walks in truth so firmly that the room has no choice but to meet her there. And slowly, things begin to shift. People speak more honestly. Tension begins to ease. Pretending begins to dissolve. Because someone walked in who wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was there to bring alignment. To read the room and rewrite it requires courage. It requires humility. It requires the inner strength to stay grounded even when everything around you is shaky. The intelligent woman has cultivated that strength. She knows when to speak and when to be still. She knows when to wait and when to act. She doesn't force transformation. She lives it. And in doing so, she gives others permission to do the same. Learn and then unlearn. The highly intelligent woman is a lifelong learner. But more than that, she is a courageous unlearner. She collects wisdom with discernment, but she holds it loosely enough to release it when it no longer serves her. She understands that intelligence is not just about gaining knowledge, it's about shedding illusions. It's about dismantling the narrative she was handed and choosing the ones that align with truth, freedom, and growth. She does not cling to beliefs just because they are familiar. She dares to ask, is this still true for me? From a young age, women are taught many things, some empowering, some imprisoning. Be quiet. Be agreeable. Be beautiful but not intimidating. Be strong but not too strong. Be humble but not invisible. The intelligent woman has heard these voices, internalized some, resisted others. But at some point she pauses and questions the script. She recognizes that what she learned may have been necessary for survival at one point, but survival is not the same as wholeness. And she chooses wholeness. Learning is easy when it's about acquiring facts or skills. But unlearning is a deeper labor. It means sitting with discomfort. It means looking in the mirror and saying, I was wrong. It means examining her patterns and asking, did I choose this way of being, or was it chosen for me? It's not about shame. It's about evolution. She does not fear the process of becoming new. She embraces it. She knows that transformation requires excavation. The lies must be named. The wounds must be acknowledged. The masks must be dropped. She learns from books, yes. But she also learns from people, from heartbreak, from silence, from failure, from joy. She gathers insight like a gardener collects seeds. But she does not keep every seed. Some she plants, some she gives away, and some she burns, knowing they were never hers to carry. This is wisdom, not in having all the answers, but in knowing when an old answer no longer fits the question. Unlearning is also about power. She questions the systems that shaped her, the rules that told her what was possible, the limits that were never hers, but were placed on her by someone else's fear. She sees where culture has tried to make her small and begins the sacred work of expansion. Not outward, for the sake of ambition, but inward, toward depth, toward truth, toward her original self. She understands that intelligence without reflection is shallow. So she reflects, she revisits, she uproots. This process doesn't make her fragile, it makes her flexible. She is not rigid in her identity. She does not need to be right to feel safe. She finds safety in her openness. That openness allows her to evolve in real time. To say, I don't know yet. To admit, I'm still learning. To offer, I used to believe that, but I've changed. That is not weakness. That is integrity. That is a rare and holy kind of strength. She outgrows versions of herself and doesn't mourn their loss. She blesses them and lets them go. Each chapter was necessary. Each belief taught her something, even if it was what not to believe. She walks forward lighter, freer, clearer. Because she no longer defines herself by old narratives. She writes new ones. She learns not just to adapt to change, but to initiate it, to be the catalyst, to evolve out loud, and in doing so she creates space for others to do the same. Her unlearning is an invitation, not a condemnation. She shows that change is not something to fear, it is something to celebrate. It means you're still alive. It means you're still listening. It means you've made room for something deeper to grow. Don't compete, create. The highly intelligent woman does not waste her energy on competition. She knows the race is not between her and the woman beside her, but between her and the voice inside that tells her to be smaller, quieter, less of herself. She has learned to recognize when she is being pulled into comparison, and she steps out of that cycle with grace and intention. Competition may look like progress, but she knows that true power is not won by outperforming others. It's revealed by creating what only she can bring into existence. She doesn't seek to take anyone else's place. She builds her own. She doesn't measure her value by how many eyes are on her, but by how aligned she feels in her spirit. Her focus is not on proving that she belongs in the room. Her focus is on creating a room that never existed before. A room where she can breathe, speak, rest, rise. A room where others can do the same. Competition is rooted in scarcity. It says, if she wins, I lose. But this woman has outgrown that story. She knows there is enough space, enough opportunity, enough brilliance to go around. So when she sees another woman shining, she doesn't flinch. She celebrates. Because her worth was never dependent on someone else's light being dim. She is not threatened by excellence. She is inspired by it. Creation for her is not just art or innovation. It is identity. She creates how she shows up in the world. She creates the atmosphere around her. She creates safety in her presence, truth in her words, beauty in her work. She does not need to destroy something to build something. She doesn't need to tear down to rise. She builds because she was born to. She builds because there is something inside her that refuses to settle for imitation. She is a woman who knows how to imagine. And imagination is the birthplace of power. She sees beyond what is and dares to dream of what could be. She moves from vision, not from pressure. She isn't looking over her shoulder. She is looking inward, then upward, then forward. Her pace may not match the world's, but it matches her purpose. And she has chosen purpose over performance. There is a quiet kind of authority in someone who has nothing to prove. That's the power of the intelligent woman who creates. She doesn't hustle for validation. She moves with clarity. She doesn't chase applause. She chases alignment. She trusts that when she honors what's inside her, the right people will find her. The right doors will open. The right timing will unfold. Her work may not be loud, but it is lasting, because she didn't build it out of fear or ego. She built it out of truth, out of desire, out of knowing. Her creations carry her fingerprint, her soulprint. And that is something no competition can replicate. When others are trying to fit into the mold, she is breaking it. When others are trying to win the game, she is changing the game. This woman does not rush. She creates from a deeper rhythm, one that listens, one that waits, one that births ideas, spaces, relationships, and movements that are rooted, not reactive. She understands that creation is a sacred act, that building something meaningful takes time, courage, patience. But she is not afraid of the process. She trusts the soil. She trusts her hands. She trusts the vision that won't leave her alone. Heal before you lead. The highly intelligent woman understands that unhealed wounds do not disappear. They lead. They speak through her voice, her choices, her leadership, and her silence. She knows that leading from a fractured place may still impress others, but it will quietly drain her. So she chooses to do the deeper work, the quiet work, the internal work. She chooses healing not because it is easy or glamorous, but because she refuses to carry unspoken pain into the spaces she is meant to transform. She does not wear her pain as armor. She lays it down piece by piece, not in weakness but in wisdom. She has realized that survival patterns can look like strength to the outside world, but they are often symptoms of avoidance. And she wants more than survival. She wants to lead with clarity, with authenticity, with wholeness. She wants her presence to be a place of safety, not projection. She wants her leadership to come from overflow, not from emptiness masked by ambition. So she slows down, she stops performing, she stops proving. She begins to listen to the parts of herself that were ignored, dismissed, or silenced for too long. She allows herself to feel, to grieve, to forgive, to release. This work is not visible on a stage or a resume, but it is the foundation of everything she will carry into the world. She knows that unhealed leaders often build kingdoms that collapse under the weight of their own unresolved pain. Healing for her is not a final destination. It is a rhythm, a commitment, a return. It is a decision to stop passing on what she never asked to carry. It is choosing not to lead from the need to be needed. It is stepping into spaces not with a hunger to control, but with the capacity to nurture. She is no longer addicted to business. She is not trying to outrun her story. She is trying to own it, to bless it, to redeem it. Not just for herself, but for those she is called to lead. Her leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being present, being real, being grounded. She can sit in a room and name the hard truths because she's named them within herself first. She can hold space for others without rushing to fix them because she's learned how to sit with her own discomfort. She can lead with humility because her worth is not built on always having the answer. It's built on listening, learning, evolving. She doesn't just inspire people with her achievements. She frees them with her honesty. She leads by example, not by image. Her transparency is not a performance, it is a gift. It tells others healing is possible, growth is available. You don't have to be fully whole to begin, but you must be honest about where you are. That honesty is what builds trust. That is what creates legacy. This kind of leadership is not loud. It is deep. It is not about the spotlight. It is about the roots. It is the kind of leadership that lasts because it's not built on shallow ground. She knows that leading from a wounded place may gain temporary followers, but leading from a healed place raises up other leaders. It multiplies courage. It nurtures freedom. It cultivates spaces where people don't have to perform to belong. She is not afraid to say, I needed time to heal. She is not afraid to pause, to retreat, to rest, to realign. She has nothing to prove. Her healing has become her power, not her shame. Her wholeness is not a destination. It is a way of being. It informs how she speaks, how she works, how she loves, how she confronts, how she forgives. She doesn't need to dominate to lead. She leads with grace. She leads with truth. She leads with her life. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. The highly intelligent woman has come to understand that peace is not something the world gives. It is something she must cultivate, protect, and fiercely honor. It is not a mood or a passing moment. It is the ground beneath her purpose. She knows that when her peace is disrupted, her clarity falters, her vision blurs, and her energy is scattered. She has learned that the cost of constant noise is too high, and the illusion that she must be available to everyone at all times is a slow poison to the soul. So she makes different choices now. Not from coldness or pride, but from a place of reverence. For her time, her spirit, her assignment. She has learned to recognize the subtle thieves of peace, the guilt-driven obligations, the conversations that go nowhere but downward, the people who confuse access with entitlement, the environments that drain instead of nourish. She has learned that chaos often comes dressed as urgency and that not every demand is a divine appointment. She trusts that what is truly meant for her will not require her to sacrifice her sanity to receive it. So she has begun to say no, not with apology but with quiet authority. Not every invitation is sacred. Not every door is hers to walk through. She no longer over-explains her boundaries. She knows that peace is not up for negotiation. If it costs her alignment, it is too expensive. If it requires her to betray her intuition, it is not a real opportunity. It is a distraction. She holds space for joy, for stillness, for breath. She removes herself from conversations that do not honor truth. She steps back from patterns that masquerade as loyalty but breed resentment. She trusts herself to walk away before bitterness roots itself where beauty should grow. She creates margins in her days, not as laziness but as wisdom. She doesn't fill every moment to the brim. She has learned the power of pause. She allows herself the grace to rest without justification. Rest is not the opposite of productivity for her. It is the foundation of sustainability. When she is rested, she sees clearly. When she is rested, she leads from overflow. When she is rested, she remembers who she is. So she builds rest into her life like a sacred rhythm. Peace has become her filter. If it disturbs her inner quiet, she investigates. If it drains her consistently, she re-evaluates. If it pretends to be love but feels like control, she lets go. This discernment is not born of fear but of freedom. She is no longer interested in tolerating what slowly erodes her spirit. She is here to live fully, not to shrink quietly. She is here to be rooted, not tossed. She recognizes that peace is not passive, it is a warrior's stance. It requires boundaries, it demands truth. It asks her to be honest about what she's been pretending doesn't hurt. She stops abandoning herself to keep the peace with others. She begins keeping the peace within. She starts with herself. She listens to what her body is telling her. She watches how her energy responds to places and people. She pays attention to the atmosphere she allows around her. And when her peace is disrupted, she does not tolerate it. She addresses it. Protecting her peace means choosing environments that match her values. It means surrounding herself with people who don't just tolerate her but see her, honor her, speak life into her. It means allowing herself to walk away from roles and routines that no longer fit the version of her she is becoming. Peace is not found in perfection. It is found in alignment, and alignment often requires hard choices. Choices that may be misunderstood by others but make her soul exhale. Stay teachable even when you're winning. The highly intelligent woman never outgrows learning. No matter how many rooms she's entered, how many tables she's been invited to, or how many accolades are tied to her name, she understands that the moment she stops learning, she starts drifting. Success to her is not a signal to stop growing but a call to grow deeper. She doesn't mistake applause for arrival. She knows that wisdom isn't loud and growth doesn't always look glamorous. She listens more than she speaks. She observes more than she reacts. She stays curious, not because she doubts herself, but because she honors the truth that there's always more to know. She refuses to be intoxicated by her own momentum. Even when the world tells her she's made it, she keeps her spirit grounded. She seeks mentors. She reads books that challenge her worldview. She welcomes feedback even when it stings because she's not attached to ego. She's committed to evolution. Her confidence does not cancel out her humility. They walk together. She's not afraid to admit what she doesn't know. She's not intimidated by others who know more. She learns from them, honors them, and lets their wisdom sharpen her own. Being teachable doesn't mean she doubts her worth. It means she honors the process. It means she knows the difference between being celebrated and being complete. She does not perform perfection. She shows up as a student of life, of love, of leadership. Her identity isn't built on always being right. It's built on always being real. She is not threatened by new information. She welcomes it. Because the woman who stops learning becomes the woman who slowly disconnects from the very voice that once made her rise. She asks questions. Not because she's weak, but because she's wise. She doesn't interrupt to prove a point. She leans in. She honors every experience, every perspective, knowing that truth often hides in unexpected places. She surrounds herself with people who sharpen her thinking. She's not afraid of critique that comes with compassion. She discerns the difference between correction and control. And when correction comes from a loving, wise place, she receives it like a gift. She stays teachable in her relationships. She learns how to love better, how to listen better, how to forgive deeper. She doesn't default to defensiveness. She takes responsibility. She knows that intimacy thrives not in certainty but in humility. That being right is never more important than being whole. She doesn't need to dominate to feel secure. She needs to understand. She lets people teach her how to love them well. She stays teachable in her calling. She doesn't become rigid in old patterns when new doors open. She pivots, she evolves. She allows herself to be led by the quiet voice within, the one that says, "There's more here if you're willing to grow." She knows that revelation doesn't end with her past success. That new levels require new vision. That every new season will ask her to unlearn something she thought she had mastered. So she releases her grip. She stays open. She also remains teachable with herself. She doesn't punish the past version of her who didn't know what she now knows. She honors the journey. She extends grace to her younger self while still holding herself accountable to keep becoming. She allows her past lessons to deepen her present wisdom. She does not rush growth. She allows it to be layered, slow, sacred. Her ability to stay teachable is part of what keeps her strong. Because when others plateau in pride, she keeps rising in purpose. She's not addicted to being seen as the expert. She's anchored in becoming a better human. That is her legacy. Not perfection. Not status. But a life that never stopped learning, a soul that stayed open, a heart that stayed soft, a mind that stayed sharp, a woman who never stopped saying, "Teach me more." And so, let it be known, this is not just a portrait of brilliance but a call to rise. A summons to every woman who carries fire in her bones and wisdom in her silence. These 7 habits are not rules, they are revelations. They are invitations to a deeper, richer way of living. To lead not just with intellect but with integrity. To create from a place of healing. To protect what is sacred, to walk in purpose without apology. For the highly intelligent woman is not simply the one who knows much, but the one who chooses growth, who honors truth, who stays grounded when praised and stays humble when rising. She is a force because she is rooted. She is magnetic because she is whole. And when she walks into a room, it is not her voice that announces her. It is her peace, her clarity, her conviction. This is her era, not because the world finally made room, but because she stopped waiting for permission.